Hi everyone, it's Mrs. Carr with our summer term meeting. Our recording of the meeting stopped halfway through, so I'm just going to quickly talk through what I did before, and then if you've got any questions you can email me, okay? Nobody in the meeting had any general questions, so if you've got anything you can just email me. So welcome to our information evening. This evening we'll be looking at a general overview of the curriculum for Year 5, what we'll be learning during this term particularly, how we're trying to develop your children in different ways, what you can do to help your child this year, and also some general information about the timetable changes and things like that. So the Year 5 curriculum. At a Carl, different areas of the curriculum are taught by different people. So Mrs. Wallace teaches Spanish, I teach RE, Mrs. Kuna teaches Sikhi, Kenny teaches PE, Mr. Peggs teaches computing, and Mr. Hallam teaches personal development. Apart from PE, the other 5 of these topics, subjects, are what we call carousel subjects. The children used to have one of these every day. What we've recently done, as in this week, is moved it all to a Monday, because we did that just before the holidays and asked the children which they preferred and which one they thought kind of worked better, and they voted for having it all in one day. So we're trialing that at the minute and seeing how it works. Okay, Kenny teaches PE to each class on a different day, so I'll talk to you about that in a little bit as well. Maths and English. So in maths we'll be learning division and beginning our work on fractions. It's really important that if your children don't know their times tables, they really start to practice them, because during our multiplication topic, I've noticed that not knowing times tables are slowing the children down, and it's meaning that they're having to spend longer on working out that bit rather than using the methods and using what they know. So if they don't know them, please start practicing. Okay, I will be sharing some videos of the methods that we learn so that you can have a look at those and be practicing them with your children at home. So I'll be sharing those with you in the next few weeks. In reasoning, we'll be covering rounding, polygons, time transitions and coordinates. So again, I'll try and do a video about rounding as well. Okay, polygons are to do with shapes and looking at irregular shapes and regular shapes and things like that. Time transitions are working out the different amounts of time between 2 specific times. So for example, I took my cake out of the oven at 4:30. It took 1 hour and 15 minutes to bake. What time did I put it in? Things like that. So working out, okay, so you've got this time and this time, and what is the amount of time between those? And we'll be looking at coordinates as well. So for our English, we'll be writing historical fiction and a dilemma narrative. All of our English writing this term is linked to our topic of Goodnight, Mr. Tom, which I'll be speaking to you about in a minute. Historical fiction is the one that we're starting with, and it will be based on the trenches, so that's linked to your child's homework this week. In our word study, that's where we look at spelling. The children will be completing a range of spelling rules. We find that doing it this way, learning the rules rather than sending home 10 spellings a week to learn, means that the children are able to apply that knowledge to new and unfamiliar words, as well as kind of remembering the ones that they've done. So we find that that works well with their writing. Excuse me. In reading, we're particularly focusing this term on debate and justifying arguments. So your children are particularly good at debating, actually, and they've become really focused as well on counter-arguing. And I think it's really helping them to be able to express themselves in a respectful way, because your children are not afraid of having their own point of view, and they're not afraid of saying, oh, actually, I disagree with this person, but they do it really respectfully, which I think is a real skill to have, because it just builds that confidence in your own thinking as well, but also not discounting others. So when we debate in class, the children always get the chance to move it over to the other side if they think that they've been convinced and changed their mind. So it's kind of trying to teach them as well that, you know, just because you start off believing one thing, that doesn't mean that you have to keep those views if you think that there have been convincing arguments against it. We're also going to look at justifying arguments, which goes with debate, but it also goes with you know, different skills in reading. So for example, before half term we had a short poem, and I gave the children, I think it was 6 different pictures, and said, for you, which one represents the poem the best? and they all chose different ones, and they're able to talk about it and explain their reasoning and say, oh, well, actually such and such has said this picture, but I think it's this one because. And again, it's just that justifying their arguments and explaining why they think something. We're also going to be looking at performing, so performing their own writing and also the writing of others. So we'll be doing that through play scripts as well. Most children are fairly confident with this. There's a couple that are quite shy, so it's just trying to give them that confidence of, you know, just have a go. It doesn't matter if something's wrong, and really focusing them in on that tone and expression as well. Please encourage your child to change their book regularly as well. There's some children that are really good at it and some who are not so good at it. If they're not changing their book regularly, it means that they're not being able to read a wide range. They're meant to be reading fiction, they're meant to be reading non-fiction, and yes, we do bits of it in school, but they're meant to be taking home their reading book and reading it every night, okay? If they're not, they're just not going to get that wide range of language that they need. They're not going to be able to apply what they've read to their writing, because in year 5, English really steps up. It's all about thinking about your audience, thinking about the type of writing that you're doing. And again, yes, we look at that in class, but if they're not reading a lot, then they're not going to know about different types of writing, okay? I will be assessing children in the next few weeks, and I will be speaking to them about changing their book as well, okay? So during the 3rd term, our summer term mission is called Goodnight, Mr. Tom. We'll be learning history, geography, science, design, art, music and dance, and we'll be learning topic maths as well to do with cooking. Our trip is going to be to Eden Camp. You should get a letter about that in the next few weeks. It's a really, really good trip. We went for the first time last year, and oh, it's so much fun. It's brilliant. And this will all then feed into the Mission Impossible for this term, which is a surprise for now. Okay, I'm just going to stop there and share the mission list with you so you can see the different things that we're going to be learning about. So our first mission is based on history. It's about evacuation, which is where Goodnight, Mr. Tom starts. So our missions go alongside Goodnight, Mr. Tom. So when we learn about something in class, it should link to our reading book as well. Next is DT, what can save you from an air raid? How do science and maths affect cooking? So the science one will be more to do with an experiment to do with whether things dissolve, whether they separate, whether they create a solution. Is that something that can be reversed or not? And then we link that to our cooking, and maths the next week will be about measurement and converting measurements and things like that as well. Then we've got a dance mission after half term where we focus on the Charleston. We look at music, particularly singing, singing alongside other children, making sure that you're using your voice with rhythm, with the correct tone, with the correct tune, at the same time as other people, and listening with attention to detail. So if you're listening to that song, you then need to repeat it, okay? Our geography is linked to key capital cities and ports, and we link it to rationing as well, and the idea of, okay, so why did people find it difficult to get food during World War II? And then our final mission is our art mission, and we focus on sculpture, particularly wire sculpture, about you know, how people view different pieces of art. Are they making something that's quite subjective? So do people see it in different ways? Are they making something where it's very clear what the meaning is meant to be? Yeah, so that's our mission list. I'll go back to the PowerPoint. So responsibility is still a big thing this term. Your children have got a lot better at this. They are taking more responsibility for their work. It's just pushing them really, just to make sure that, you know, in the next few years, particularly when they do go to secondary school, that they have that responsibility for their learning and they know how to do things for themselves rather than depending on other people. Our enrichment this term is in the forest with Mrs. This year is in the forest with Mrs. Arundel. This has changed this term from the forest to the allotment. Okay, I'll be talking about that more in a minute. But the children work really, really hard when they go to the allotment. What can you do to help your child this year? Encourage them to be individuals. That's why we try and get them to debate, to try and think for themselves. Okay, it's okay not to think the same things as other people, but also by having freedom of speech and things like that, a responsibility also comes with that. Okay, making sure they're at school every day and on time. This is one of the most important things. Every time they're not at school or every time they're late, they miss something. Of course, if your child is really ill, that's different. But just, you know, just be aware of that, that if they are off school a lot, they're going to miss a lot of work, and it's not always possible to catch that up to the same quality as it would have been if they were in school. Okay. Signing into my school app to make sure you're aware of key dates and messages. Key dates are also on the website, and Mrs. Davey also sends out text messages quite regularly for anything that you need to know about. Listen to what they've been learning at school, particularly with homework. Give them time to relax as well. They do work really hard at school. You know, they come and it is non-stop. So, you know, give them that downtime as well. And ask them questions to help them further their reasoning and practical math skills, and to encourage them to be thinkers. I probably don't need to say too much more about that. It's just those real life skills, really. Okay, homework this year follows exactly the same pattern as it has before. Handed out on the Friday to be handed in a week on Wednesday. Reading, English, maths and topic. Reading, I'm not doing it with the, you know, read every night, tell me when you've read every night, because they should be doing that anyway. They're old enough to be able to do that themselves, most of them, rather than having to read to somebody. So I'm trying to make their reading homework more challenging, to test them on those other skills that they need to do with the comprehension. The topic homework is based around their work with Mrs. Arundel. So some of it will be based around the allotment, some of it won't, so just keep an eye out for that. They can do that either in their book from Mrs. Arundel, their homework book, or they can send that to me or Mrs. Arundel as well. Excuse me. Our timetable has changed slightly. So PE has moved to a Wednesday morning. Children will require a PE kit on this day, and they should bring it in on a Monday and take it home on a Friday to wash. Reason being that if anything does happen where we need to change PE around, it just means that they have their PE kit. PE kit should be their school PE top. If you haven't got one, ask Mrs. Davey. A jumper and jogging trousers or something, and trainers. And please make sure that children are able to take out their earrings as well themselves. And then obviously we have swimming on a Friday, but the children are all used to that by now. Our forest enrichment will be on a Thursday afternoon, and will also require wellies and an allotment kit. That's literally just some old joggers or some old clothes, really, an old t-shirt, some trainers, stuff that you don't mind getting dirty. Okay. There's still a range of clubs available. Ask at the office for any spaces. What's happened now is that if you're not up to date on payments, you won't be given clubs until you are. So it's really important to keep up to date with that. Okay. If there are any questions, don't hesitate to ask. You can email me, you can grab me after school. Yeah, so lots, you can ring, although that's kind of obviously harder for me to come and speak to you during the day, but you can ring after school and I will get back to you. Okay. So yeah, just email me is probably the best way if you've got any questions. Okay, and that's the end of our meeting. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you soon. Okay, bye.